Most people think they have to work an 8 or 10 hour day, but they're not productive for 8 or 10 hours a day. So blank space on a calendar is actually good. And again, most people fill their day because they're trying to avoid something.
So true.
I wish someone knew what I'm teaching women now. And I felt so alone. It's why I do things in group. No one understood me. My friends didn't get me because I burnt everything to the ground. And what I discovered was if I had have had more grace and patience with myself, I wouldn't have had to burn it to the ground. We choose wrong because we'd rather be loved by someone than no one. And I think that's actually what's wrong with most marriages, is that we didn't have the difficult conversations because no one taught us how to have boundaries or self-respect or self-love.
Is there a reason you don't work with men? Because I think so many guys would it would just be like a game changer for them. Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life from the Horizon Digital podcast recording studio here in Perth. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Now, if you do enjoy this episode, we please ask that you like and subscribe to our channels below, or simply share it with a fellow business owner who may be feeling stuck and isn't quite sure of what their next steps are. Funny story with my guest today. I sent this lovely lady an outreach message on LinkedIn after binging Alex Hormozi and how I can best add value. And what this beautiful lady did was she jazzed up my message and said, hey, why don't you give this a go? This is what I specialize in. And so I thought I have to have coffee with this wonderful lady. And upon meeting her, I was so drawn to the mind, body and soul connection that she has and the true sense of power that it gives her, and thought I have to have her on my podcast. She is the go-to strategist for high-achieving women ready to step out of the daily grind and into true CEO leadership. As the founder of the CEO Circle, she partners with established entrepreneurs, scaling from multi 6 to 7 figures, helping them build businesses that thrive without constant oversight. Lezly Kaye, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love that reflection.
I was on the way out and I was like, right, I have to share this because that's how we met. And I often say people underestimate the power of LinkedIn, but it was great. And thank you for, spicing up my outreach message.
You're welcome. Some of my best connections come from just being like, hey, love this and this is what I would do.
Yeah, and just adding that value. And that's what that Alex Hormozi video spoke about. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this free discovery, send it out. And then, like I say, you spice things up. And it's actually worked really well. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I've taken a while to refine, but yeah, once you understand the psychology of how people's minds work, outreach, marketing, business in general becomes a whole lot easier.
Lezly, now I know you have been on quite the personal and business journey. What's one thing about your journey that most people don't know but has shaped you as a leader?
I don't know if there's anything about me that people at least couldn't find out if they wanted to, because I talk about everything so openly. There's part of me that wants to say my childhood, but I do speak about it often. I have this belief that most entrepreneurs are successful because of the trauma they're trying to avoid.
Yes.
Generally, entrepreneurs come into the space because they're trying to prove something, whether it's to themselves, their family, the mum and dad that didn't love them. Whether I talk about big trauma and little trauma. So trauma in essence is too much too soon, too fast, or not enough too often. So I speak to entrepreneurs sometimes like, well, I had the perfect childhood and I went to private school and there was no abuse and X, Y, Z. And, you ask them a question like, did you feel loved and accepted by your mum, or loved and accepted by your dad? And they're like, well, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool, that's trauma.
Yeah, of course.
I think most people would know if they wanted to, but for the sake of anyone that's listening to this show and might be listening to me for the first time, I think the conversation about, I was not even raised, I raised myself, but I was brought into the world by drug addicts.
Yeah, wow.
And then was taken off my mum when I was 4 years old because she left me in a car. She forgot that me and my brother were in the car and kind of just left for 2 days, and my nana had to come and collect us, and then we lived with them ever since then. So my story is definitely one born on the back of I don't really like the word adversity. Part of me wouldn't change it because it's made me who I am.
Yeah.
and it makes me a really good entrepreneur because of all of the, I don't know, like the alchemy of that path has allowed me to be the strategist that I am. So yeah, that's probably one thing that most people wouldn't know unless they went searching.
And walk us through. So you moved in with your grandparents. Did you study after school, or what was the journey there?
Yeah, so I was 4 when they came and got me and my brother. Then went to school, and I quickly found out that education or intelligence was going to get me praise. So my success is kind of on the back of praise kink. Like my granddad would always say to me, like, you're smart, like you're a good girl, you're, like be smart, get good grades. And I was his little princess. So yeah, that sort of embedded this belief that I was only worth anything or worth praise or worth love, especially because my mum didn't love me. For those that are listening, I'm doing quotation marks. I've done a lot of healing. So my mum loved me as best she could with the skills and tools and the trauma that she had. But my internalized story was that mum didn't love me.
Yeah.
So when I was then getting praise for how smart I was, I registered that as great. So for me to be loved, I need to be successful or smart or XYZ. So it served me because I then got ducks of the school. I studied journalism in year 11, but then I kind of got bored with mainstream. So I dropped out of high school in year 11.
Okay.
I moved out of home when I was 14. So despite the fact that my grandparents looked after me, the rest of my family carries a lot of trauma. So there was a lot of sexual assault, physical assault, peppered throughout my childhood.
Yeah,
so
wow.
the second my brother was, I was almost 15. My brother was 16 and he moved out and I was like, oh, if he's leaving, I'm leaving. Please don't leave me here by myself. So
Has you always kind of stuck together?
Yes and no. I think me and my brother aren't close now, but back then it was kind of, and to be fair, we weren't really close back then. Our childhood is, I don't want this whole podcast to be on the trauma of my childhood, but our childhood is very like marred with trauma. So there was almost like a familiarity in that.
Sure.
But I was just like, I don't want to be here alone. So moved out of home when I was 15. Then so I grew up in Gelton, a little country town. And then I moved to Perth when I was 17. So I dropped out of high school for a boy.
As you do.
Fell in love, moved. But I'm very grateful because he got me out of that little country town mindset. So anyone that's listening that lives in a country town, the best thing you can do is leave. I promise you. It just, even now, like travel, and I've traveled to 7 countries in the past 12 months, it just, I don't know. When your world feels small, when your world feels like things aren't possible, travel for me just reinstills this. I just got on a metal thing and I flew halfway across the world and now I'm in a new place and there's new people and there's new opportunity. And I think that experience alone just expands your capacity to like feel what's possible in your life.
Yeah, true. And so after school then, because I know you worked for a company and then you kind of branched out into your own thing as well.
Yes. So when I was 17, when I moved to Perth, I started in real estate. That was my first introduction to sales and I had an amazing boss. I've been grateful that throughout my journey, I've sort of stumbled across like mentors and people that have taken me under their wing and sort of like guided me a little, like little guardian angels. So when I was 17, I got a position as a real estate PA, got my real estate license and sort of entered the world of real estate. Then when I was 19, I had it, and I've written an article about this. It's in the Daily Mail.
Okay.
I took a year of partying, so I was a party girl pretty much. Like
you and me both.
Yeah. Most people don't go publish articles on it, but I did.
Actually, I can't say I published one.
So I went and partied in the Gold Coast, like got paid to party pretty much for 12 months.
Gee.
And then came back to Perth and started my career in recruitment. And then, did recruitment for one of the largest recruitment agencies in the world for 9 years and then started my own businesses from there.
And what, I guess, drew you to working with female entrepreneurs?
So in that journey, a couple of things happened. So when I was working for, and I won't say names because I'm about to, when I fell pregnant, they wouldn't let me keep my business.
Right.
So they said, if you take mat leave, you can't keep your business. And I was so to give you an example of how good I am.
Yeah. Love that.
I was going to say was, but I still am.
Yeah,
but
of course.
As an employee, I was taking home $700K, and that was mostly commission. So $700K salary for 5 years, between $500, $700K as an employee. And my base was $80,000. So just to give you an example of the level of commission. So yeah, I quickly learned that, and this high achiever vein that was pumped through my trauma, again, I'm grateful for it, was just when I apply myself to something, and it wasn't balanced back then, and this is sort of leading into why I now help female founders specifically, because I threw myself into my work and I avoided myself by working harder.
Yeah.
So I would work 10 to 12-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, made a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who I was. I didn't, I met my ex-husband at that time. We're great friends, by the way, but our relationship was founded on very shallow existence. We didn't really know each other. We kind of coexisted together. It was like a balm for the loneliness, but we didn't have a true connection. So yeah, in all of this story, so like met my ex-husband when I was 21, 22, built a reputation to be the world's best recruiter. Actually, I still hold that title. So I think the biggest month I had was $500K, and the previous to that it was like 370 or something. So that's billings in a month in margin. So
wow.
Just made a lot of money.
Yeah. You were hustling, girl.
I was hustling hard. But in that, I then fell pregnant, had our son, only took 6 weeks leave, came back to work. Yeah. And he was pretty much raised by daycare for the first 2 years of his life, daycare and my ex-husband's parents. So I was a mum by title, but not by presence, if I'm being honest. And that journey sort of started this awakening process. It took me, so I talk about like the universe will tap you on the shoulder and then it will punch you in the face.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that. I think I've got a few blood noses from it.
I waited to the second punch in the face, if I'm being honest.
Oh, it's probably like the first one. Depends what we're speaking about, but yeah.
So I then started, so they told me I couldn't take mat leave, or I could, but I couldn't keep my business. Wow. So I didn't, and I went back and I was there for 6 months, and I was like, actually, I don't want someone else to control my life. I don't want, I don't want to be told no, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I started my own business in partnership. And this was actually where the mentorship in my life sort of became a bit, rather than guardian angels, they started to become lessons. So because I never had a father, he was never around, not even when I was little. My mum raised me as best she could until I was 4. Then my grandparents were there, but I didn't actually start a relationship with my dad until I was 18.
Right.
So my core wound, well, both, I have two. Thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad. Was I'm not wanted by my mum, so I have abandonment of the feminine, and then I'm not wanted by my dad, so I have abandonment of the masculine. So I always subconsciously sought approval from men and sought mentorship from men because I was looking for daddy.
Interesting.
So my first business partner, an older gentleman, a shark pretty much, like through and through businessman, saw an opportunity and saw a way to leverage my insecurities and I was just so naive and so trusting, basically little girl from the country, fell into being so successful, really just trusted people so naively. And essentially he poached me, he promised me the world, like to become CEO of this organization. They only had an East Coast operation, and they made me a director and co-founder of the Western Australian operation. On the shareholders agreement that was never lodged, I was a 25% shareholder of that business.
Okay.
And he funded the whole thing.
Right.
So in 18 months, I grew that business to 60 million in turnover.
Wowza.
And then
started as you say that. Just 60 million.
Just 60 million, casual 60 million. Didn't have a life, didn't raise my son, but built a $60 million business.
I think that speaks to your drive though, and just the way you seem to focus on something and you just go like guns blazing. And
yes.
Even though you had your son at home, you still just were like so fixed on what you were doing and you delivered on it like.
100%. And I also want to speak to the shadow of that. So I still have the same drive. I call it devotion now, not drive, because I'm in service to like the women I'm here to help, because we'll get to this part of the story. So ladies, stay with me. But there's a better way. There's an easier way. And I built a lot of this on wounding, because if I'm being honest, I was just avoiding my husband because we didn't really have a relationship, and I was avoiding being a mother because I didn't know how, and I was so afraid that I was going to be like my mother.
Yeah.
And within that, I kind of abandoned him for the first 2 years because I wasn't present. So I kind of started to become everything I didn't want to in the avoidance of my childhood.
Got it.
And I wanted to, every high achieving entrepreneur out there that comes from any form of trauma, my motto was, it can't be that bad because look how successful I am. Like, surely it didn't affect me that much because look at how successful I am. And if it affected me, I would be a drug addict like my mum, or I would be an alcoholic like my dad. But really, I was living a half existence anyway. I didn't love myself. I didn't love my ex-husband, and I didn't actually make space to be a mother. So I robbed myself of those things in what I thought was pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I built a $60 million business and I was miserable.
Really?
Miserable.
So just no sense of happiness or
Nothing
peace?
was ever enough.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever enough. Like, even when I was taking home in the recruitment business, I was literally taking home 60K paydays, cash in hand after tax. And I would get the money and I'd be like,
Some people don't even earn that in a year. Yeah.
And I would earn that a month. And it just was this perpetual cycle of this feeling of it's not enough, I'm not good enough. When will I feel accomplished? That's why I actually started the business, because I thought it was because it wasn't mine.
Right.
So I was a high achieving employee, and my mindset was like, okay, I'm not feeling fulfilled in this. Maybe it's because it's not mine. Maybe when I start the business and build a multi-million-dollar business myself, maybe that's the thing that's going to give me fulfillment and happiness. So this constant search for something outside of myself. Now, I'm not saying it's like I'm grateful for my trauma, because I love building businesses and I love helping other women build businesses. But if when I was using it as a catalyst for my happiness, I kept finding more emptiness.
Yeah, powerful.
And that's the kicker. So I built this $60 million business, asked for my CEO position, which he promised me, asked for my dividends, which he promised me. And he called me one day and he said, I just want to let you know, great news for the company. We've appointed this CEO, James. So a man.
James.
Above
Was that
you.
supposed to be your role?
Yes. And I'm like stunned on the phone, and I'm like, what is even going on? Like, no conversation, no pre-warning, just like, this is what's best for the business, and basically you should fall in line because it's what's best for the business. To be fair, like, it probably was.
Yeah.
He had a lot of experience. He came from a really big recruitment agency. There's a lot of wisdom and knowledge he brought in. For me, it was the deceit.
Yeah.
Because right up until that point, he told me the position was mine, rather than having the conversation and saying, I don't think you're ready, but what if I employed someone that could mentor you?
Yeah, of course.
So that was kind of like the first sign that I was being taken for a ride. And then someone within the organisation let me into the fact that the shareholders agreement wasn't lodged, because they'd actually, it's a whole thing, drama circle basically. But so then I asked a lawyer to look into the shareholders agreement, and she came back to me and she said, Lezly, it's not actually been lodged. Like, you don't own any part of this company.
Goodness.
And so for me, I kind of reflect, I didn't have any conversations, but trust is huge for me to break, and I didn't have the skills I have now in having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
I actually was great at having angry conversations and asserting my power, but having vulnerable conversations back then I wouldn't. And it hurt me. Like, I trusted this man.
Yeah, your trust was betrayed.
So I just left, didn't even have a conversation. I just sent it wasn't even a resignation letter because I wasn't even an employee.
Gosh.
So I just sent an email basically saying, because of X, Y, and Z, there's no non-compete, because my non-compete was in the shareholders agreement. The shareholders agreement was never lodged, so it's null and void, so catch it later. So I left on Friday, started my own business on the Monday.
Great.
Well, except rich men don't really like being told what to do.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So he came after me with everything that he had, and basically used, there's a term for it, but like a lawyer intimidation, where he knew he wasn't going to win, but he fought me anyway. And when we started to win and I was going to go for costs, he said, I have more time and I have more money, and if you don't walk away from this, I will keep coming after you until you have nothing.
Jeez, after everything you had done for the company. Wow.
Yeah. And just because there was no non-compete, so I knew I was going to take his business.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so that was my lesson and that was the tap on the shoulder that I didn't listen to. And so I started my company by myself, self-funded in a garage the next week, like left on Friday, started on Monday and built that company to 20 million in turnover in the space of 18 months. Incredible. 18 months seems to be my threshold of breakthrough. And then built that company, and this is when I started to notice the disconnect, the lack of happiness. I got to 110 kilos, which is like 40 kilos heavier than I am now.
Wow.
My marriage started to fail, and I think COVID had a lot to do with that. When when we had a lot of money and a lot of freedom, we would travel and we would go out and we would socialize a lot. But when we were locked in the house together for 2 years, I was like, wow, we really have nothing in common.
Yeah, an eye-opener.
Truly. And again, beautiful man, just not the man for me. We co-parent greatly. I'm very grateful for that. So that was it really. And then, so to get to why I help women do what I do, I built this multi-million-dollar business. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated my business, and I felt like a prisoner in it. I really felt like I'd built a well-paid job versus a business.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be a better way here. There's something that I'm missing. And so this sort of started the can of worms of my, I don't know, spiritual awakening journey, healing journey, whatever you want to call it, and sort of turned my world into a full 360 and blew up the business, left my husband, spent the money from the business traveling the world taking plant medicine and healing and studying masters in NLP, masters in hypnotherapy. I'm a certified psychedelic coach. So I kind of threw all of this ambition into building a business, into an ambition in not only understanding me, but understanding people and understanding the psychology behind why I was successful and what I wasn't listening to or what I didn't understand in why it always had to feel hard and why I always was 12-hour days and 6 days a week versus started to pay attention to people that would say 4-hour weeks at 4-hour days at a millionaires, and really starting to be like, how do people do this?
Yeah.
And then started to uncover the psychology into why we think it needs to be hard work.
Yeah.
So that's really the short version of the journey to why I do what I do.
Lezly, I have to say, like, you are just mesmerizing sitting here. I can see you've just done so much healing and you've been on such a journey. For our listeners, you need to watch this podcast because you just emanate this true sense of peace within yourself, and that's the only way I can kind of describe it. It's really beautiful to see. I just want to backtrack a little bit. So you mentioned something really powerful again earlier. Whilst I'm sitting here, I'm just like taking it all in. I'm going to have to listen to this and watch it. You mentioned something about people, we hustle and these driven entrepreneurs, but we sometimes put our own needs on the back burner. And I know of many people who are like this. They perhaps stay in relationships where all their needs aren't being met. There's maybe like 50 or 60% there. It could be they stay in a business partnership. Do you believe it's actually possible to feel truly fulfilled in all aspects of life?
Yes.
Great. Short and sweet.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
We're generally programmed to believe, and I say programmed because who raises you, what you listen to, the TV programs you watch, societal expectations, friend expectations. The biggest slap in the face for me in my separation was the friends that I lost, because I highlighted, I kid you not, every single wife that I spoke to was unhappy.
Yeah.
And we would all sit around bitching about our husbands and no one was doing anything about it.
See.
And I was like, hang on, what the are we all doing?
You can say fuck, it's okay.
Okay, what the fuck are we all doing? Like, we get together, we drink, and I drunk then, I don't drink anymore, would have wine and would literally just bitch about our husbands.
Yeah.
And I would notice these patterns, and the more self-aware I became with the more healing, I was like, I don't want to be in these conversations anymore. Like,
no, they're not constructive.
Why aren't we doing anything? Why aren't we having these conversations with our partners? And, there's a few things, so many avenues I can go down. But firstly, I emasculated my ex-husband for 10 years. I told him and I trained him basically, and this is what we do. So it's a protection mechanism that most women that come from unsafe environments become hyper-masculine and hyper-independent, and our natural pretense is to control.
Right.
Because when we control, we feel safe.
Yeah.
If we don't feel like we can control, then we don't feel safe. So firstly, it's not your fault. Secondly, it is your responsibility to do something about it though.
Yeah.
And so I had emasculated my ex-husband for 10 years and then I expected him to change when I changed. But in his subconscious, so now this is why I study psychology, in his subconscious, basically I had programmed, and we are programmable. Masters in hypnotherapy taught me nothing but we are just machines that are programmable.
Yeah.
But I programmed him to only do as he was told and not think for himself because I didn't want him to make any decisions because I felt safe when I made all the decisions.
Got it.
Then when I started to ask him to make decisions and he couldn't, I would be standing there being like, I told you weren't man enough to lead this relationship. So there's that. There's a whole thing to unpack there, but I won't go into that. But there's just the answer to the question, can we have it all? Yes, but you have to want it and you have to believe it's possible.
Yeah.
So even now I'm in a new relationship and I'm in my 4th multi-7-figure business build. So I'm scaling 2 businesses at the same time. I'm full.
Yeah.
But I have conversations with my partner often where I say, if I cook for him, I clean for him. Let's just say he's a well looked after man. And I say to him, if my business isn't structured so I have the space to do this, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Because he would say things like, babe, I'll cook for you like 2 or 3 nights a week. I don't mind. Like, I don't want it.
Right.
If I can't be the woman that I want to be in every area of my life, it's not about balance. It's about choosing.
Yeah.
And I choose to be a present mother and I choose to be a present partner and I choose to be a multi-million-dollar business leader. And I think we're so programmed that we have to sacrifice. That we have to work hard, that we can't have everything we want, that, you know, the biggest thing generally for women in business, which is why I also have the VA agency, is hyper independence, not trusting. You know, I've gone through 4 different managers in my offshore VA business. So they're Filipino, so not Australians. I'm on my 2nd Australian ops manager and my 4th offshore ops manager, because I will not settle for someone that's not going to make me feel supported. Now, I don't just hire and then fire because they annoyed me one day.
No, of course, yeah.
But I'm not afraid to relentlessly pursue the life that I want and not make excuses, exceptions, like buy into story that I can't have it, because most of us are like, well, this will do.
Yeah, we settle.
I'm 60% satisfied, this will do.
Yep.
I'm not, and I'm going to go there, I'm not sexually fulfilled, but at least my husband loves me, so this will do.
Yeah, and I think that's a really popular one. Do you think it's the fear of the unknown and the fear of perhaps walking away? We can go there.
Yeah, but let's go there. So
Let's do it.
Let's go there. So much. For me, I only had one son and I knew I wanted a bigger family, and I was 30, oh God, how old am I? I'm 38 this year, so I was 35 when I left my ex-husband, and I was like, society says that you can only have kids basically until your 30s, and then once you're 40 it's done.
Yeah, they drum it into your head.
Honestly, I know so many women that had their first child at 40. So there was that.
It.
Honestly, I think one of the biggest fears is that we actually think we're unlovable.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd rather the love I have than risk not being loved at all.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's one of the core things, is like, well, I couldn't let this man love me, or I couldn't make this man love me, is what I actually think a lot of it is, because we're trying to control and make them love us.
Yeah.
We don't actually know how to love ourselves. How can you allow someone to love you if you don't love yourself fully? And I don't mean the pretty, perfect, high-achieving, popular part of you. I mean the chaotic messy
side.
The mess, the ugly. Can you let someone love your ugly? And do you love your ugly? Because if you don't love your ugly, no one else can. I promise you that.
Yeah, true.
And this was the issue in my marriage, is that my ex-husband knew nothing about my trauma. The articles that are now all across the internet, he reads them sometimes and he's like, what the fuck? Like, who even are you? And I'm like, sorry. Yes, because I wanted to pretend like it didn't happen. So it's like I cut half of me off.
Yeah.
And I would let the world see the designer clothes and the $1 million business and the Range Rover and the perfectly curated, like, perfect me. I let him see that me. I let him love that part of me.
Yeah.
And I say this to people, like, when we get a wound, we don't cut off our arm. We dress the wound and we heal it.
Yeah.
I cut my arm off back then and was like, well, this part of me is ugly. The traumatized part of me is ugly, and we're going to pretend like that never existed.
Yeah.
Let's just love this perfect box of who I've decided that's lovable by society.
You want to be.
And that's why our relationship was shallow, because my ex-husband, I'll give you context, my ex-husband never saw me cry. We were together 10 years. Wow. Because I was so locked down emotionally. I could express anger. I could express frustration. I would cry actually in the boardroom. I would cry when I was losing business deals. But nowhere else did I show emotion.
Oh, gee.
And I think for me, and again, it's interesting, I'm a business coach, but most of what I support people with is relationships, because that's generally what's holding us back. Relationships with other people, or relationships with their husbands, or relationships with ourselves.
So true. It's powerful stuff.
So powerful. And this is lasting change. Again, I say to people, I can give you all the strategy in the world. I've spent millions of dollars understanding business, so I can give you strategies until the cows come home. But if you don't let me understand why you're not where you want to be and the reasons that you're subconsciously keeping you back, you might have success for 6 months because I'm pushing you to implement a strategy. Sorry.
That's okay.
But you won't have lasting success.
No.
You will have this up and down, up and down, up and down, because you're not doing the inner work to match the external expansion. And so I lost my $20 million business. I burnt it to the ground because I actually didn't feel worthy of having it. And that was part of what was playing out with the previous business relationship.
Right.
I needed someone to take it from me so I could put myself back in a victim loop, so I could stay victim to my circumstances. So, and this was me, we think that we're invincible until we're not.
Yeah.
We think we're not going to get burnt out until we do. We think we're not going to have our trauma catch up on us until it does. And anyone that's sitting here that's overweight, has a chronic health condition, has chronic fatigue, has to have 10 coffees to get through the day, that's your body telling you you've been ignoring it for too long.
Yeah.
And it's going to turn into an autoimmune disease, and you need to stop ignoring it.
Do you feel like, some people will also just work 24/7. Do you feel like that's sort of a way of suppressing that trauma to some degree? Yeah.
It's avoidance.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't sit by yourself for an hour without your phone or music, you're afraid of what you're going to find in your mind, which was me.
To do.
Yeah. If you can't go lay out in nature for an hour with nothing but you and your thoughts, then you're avoiding what those thoughts are going to tell you.
Yeah, makes sense.
So for me, it was like I would rather work than get lost in my mind. My mind would tell me that, if people found out about your childhood, they would take your money from you.
Oh, wow. Yes, the stories.
If people knew, the family that you come from, and they stopped seeing the perfectly curated designer things, no one would be your friend. If your husband knew about your trauma, he wouldn't love you anymore, because who could love that?
Yeah.
Even in the businesses, I stayed busy because the noise was you're a piece of shit. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to fail. You're a fraud. It's like imposter syndrome on crack on steroids.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, it's just, and relentless.
Yeah.
So rather than sit with that, I'd be like, all right, if I pour myself into being more successful, I can prove that voice wrong. But this is where the emptiness comes from.
Yes.
Because more success and more achievement it's like we're trying to numb what we're feeling rather than feel what we're feeling.
And it stacks, right, as well. And I feel like for myself, it kind of just got worse and worse. And then I had to do some real deep soul searching, which kind of alleviated that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like when you start to do the healing work, because everyone has to, it's like a pressure cooker. You're just slowly just turning the valve to alleviate some of the pressure. So stress and anxiety is actually suppression of emotion.
Yeah.
Anxiety is your body trying to say, you're ignoring me and I need you to listen. But most people just medicate that to numb even more.
Right.
Rather than, do you know what, it's actually really fucking healthy to cry. I cry weekly.
Oh, same. I'm probably daily.
Yeah, sometimes I'm daily. Yeah. I want to just touch back on this sacrifice that women have in business, because I think this is huge. I think, some weeks I work 6-8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Some weeks I don't work at all.
Yeah.
But so I talk about, and again, this is a little touching on, I don't know, it's not even esoteric. So we're cyclical creatures. So some weeks I feel amazing and I have so much energy and I'll work full days. Some weeks I just want to lie around in the sun and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I just flow with that and follow that. The reason most people don't is because we've lost a lot of our understanding of how we actually operate as humans before almost like slave to the system of making money.
Yes.
And I don't shame myself. So I used to, okay, hustle and burnout. So this will be more relatable than talking about cycles. Not everyone's ready for that conversation, but hustle and burnout. Hustle and burnout come from the belief that we always have to be busy. Most people think they have to work an 8 or 10 hour day, but they're not productive for 8 or 10 hours a day. And so when you start to let go of the need to feel busy constantly, and you actually start to break down your job, especially as a leader, into what do you enjoy, what are you good at, and what can you do easily, and then learn to delegate the rest to people that are probably better at it than you are anyway, then you stop filling your days with things that are just there to keep you busy versus being productive.
Yeah.
And so I get done in 4 hours a day, what most people get done in an 8 hour day, because I actually enjoy what I do.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to fill my calendar with things. So blank space on a calendar is actually good. And again, most people fill their day because they're trying to avoid something.
So true.
Or they don't, like if they go to the beach for 2 hours during the middle of the day, they get so guilty because they've been led to believe that that's not what it takes to build a business.
I struggle with that. I think I still struggle with that. Even just going to the gym, I'm like, this is for your health, Tracy. Stop thinking about your computer.
Literally. And we've just lost the capacity to be present with our lives and what is. And we constantly think that, and it's the biggest one I work with women, is like that if we're not busy, if we're not working, if we're not sat in front of our computer for 8 hours a day, we're not being productive.
Yeah.
But actually we sit around for 4 hours not doing what we're meant to, trying to get into flow. We get stuck working in the business, not on the business.
Yeah.
I have the best ideas for my business when I'm at the beach, in the shower, or, like I'm not in work mode.
It's so true. I'm the same. Just having that sort of downtime, if I'm meditating or, I've started, a friend of mine suggested just going for a walk, no music, just kind of being present. And that's actually really been a game changer as well.
Yes. And we need to do more of it. And when I first started this, so hot tip for those that are like, wow, this sounds great, I would actually schedule downtime because the part of me that wanted to be structured and rigid needed it.
Yeah.
And now I just naturally flow with it. But my biggest message is don't shame yourself. So when I first started this, I would shame myself for either working too hard or working too little.
Yeah.
And shame actually is exhausting internally. So I would then get exhausted and I wasn't really doing much.
Yes.
I talk about like an internal harmony that you reach of like my internal system is same team. So hustle and drive and direction and determination is a more male or masculine quality, and this receivership and play and receptiveness is a more feminine or female quality. What I used to do was almost have this internal battle with like, well, I want to be more in my feminine, so I want to relax more and receive more, but I don't feel like I'm achieving anything. So this masculine side of me, and by the way, women and men both have masculine and feminine qualities, and we need to. It's called balance. But I got into such a deep relationship with myself that I understood what fulfilled me. I understood what downtime was for me. I understood when I was the most productive. Everything in my business came back to this relationship with myself, and I use now my business, and I help other women use their business as a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. And from there you find harmony. It's not even balance, because on the weeks I work 8 hours a day, I wouldn't call that balance.
No. And I'm glad you highlighted that as well.
But I'm in harmony. I don't care, because I know I'm in such devotion to what I'm building. I'm like, it actually doesn't even feel like work to me.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. So yeah, it's understanding what's motivating me is probably the biggest. And whether it's coming from a wound or devotion to what I'm building. Am I working like I am, or making these decisions from lack? Like, if I don't do this, my business is going to fail? Or am I in such like passion for what I'm building that I could probably work a 12-hour day and not even notice?
Yeah.
And that for me is a defining factor. It's the harmony, not balance, because balance isn't true. And hustle only comes about, this hustle culture comes about when you think you have to be busy versus I've actually just done 8 hours solid because I'm so determined, I'm so devoted to what I'm in creation of here.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I'm punishing myself or forcing myself or depriving myself of life just to achieve something, to feel something.
Lezly, I think there's so much power in what you do. Is there a reason you don't work with men? Because I think so many guys would like it would just be like a game changer for them.
I work with a handful of men.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I don't, in marketing, and if you want to get technical, niching is one of the only ways to nail your message.
Of course.
I speak about harmony and embodiment and masculine and feminine energetics, and I'm a woman, so I only have an embodied experience of what it's like to be a woman.
Sure.
But there's some private clients that I have that are men that come across me in my work and say, I really want to work with you.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not that I don't, it's just that I'm a woman. I know what it was like. And again, to your point of like why I did this, when I was building my second business, I wish someone knew what I'm teaching women now. I wish someone could say, and I felt so alone. It's why I do things in group mostly.
Yeah.
Because no one understood me. My friends didn't get me. Even the ones that were successful weren't happy with their lives.
Yeah.
And I just don't subscribe to that narrative. I'm not going to, what I say is like, I don't want another woman to live a half life or accept a half love.
Yeah.
And that's what I did I'm 38 and I've been doing this work for almost 5 years. So for 32 years of my life, I accepted mediocre, I accepted sacrifice, I accepted a sexless marriage for most of my marriage. The last 4 years would probably have sex routinely once every 6 to 12 months.
Wow.
And it's just, I'm only a couple of months into my relationship, so I feel I can't say I promise it's possible because I know it is based on the foundation. So to give you an example, the conversations me and my current partner are having are what is the relationship of the future that we want to anchor, not what's well and good now where we're in the honeymoon phase and it's all hot and heavy and what's the foundations of a good relationship? What's essential for this relationship as we evolve and as we grow together? And I kid you not, sex is like number one.
Yeah.
And not like for me, it's more the intimacy that I desire from that. Intimacy is not just about sex, but again, that's a whole different conversation. But I never had those conversations. Most people don't have those conversations with people they're dating. Honestly. We literally, I kid you not, sat down with a whiteboard at like week 8 and we're like, okay, what does the future look like? What are our values? Where are we aligned? Where may we ask each other to compromise in the future, and is this a deal breaker?
Yeah.
Do I want to work forever? How are we going to retire me?
Yeah.
Is he comfortable in supporting me if that happens? What does he need to do in his life for that to happen? What does parenting look like? Because we co-parent. So, most people don't have these conversations until it becomes a problem. And we have built the foundations of our relationship on this is what we want it to look like when it feels hard. So how do we anchor that in when it feels easy?
Yes.
And I say this to women in business too, because most people hire when they're happy. It's like you also hire in the honeymoon phase. So you hire someone that ticks the boxes for now, but you don't actually think about what happens when I'm stressed and I'm not communicating well. How are we going to communicate? What happens if the business goes through a growth phase and I want to double in size? Are they going to come on the journey with me? What do they value? Because if you have an employee that values family and you expect them to work overtime all of the time, no money in the world is going to keep them forever.
No.
If you have someone that values family and you offer them a 9-day fortnight, they'll stay with you forever. And most people leave out the psychology, and it's actually not even this, that they leave out the human. And when you leave out the human, it's destined to run into trouble. So there's lessons wrapped up in all of this for everyone. It's like, don't compromise on anything and don't think that you have to. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
Anytime I've hired, and I'm bootstrapping 2 businesses, and I've made some, and again, this is my 4th build and I still make mistakes. And I've witnessed where I've made a mistake based on I'm in a bit of, I really need to fix this problem versus I'm just going to take a little bit of extra time. Same as in relationships. Don't just think that, if you don't have the conversation, everything will work itself out, because it doesn't. You'll end up in a sexless, loveless, again, my ex-husband's a beautiful man. We just weren't compatible. Yeah. We just weren't compatible. We have now that I know what values are, we have completely different values.
Completely. And if I look back at my marriage, my ex-husband and I are exactly the same. We just have, at the time when we met, it was all great. And I think you do, you go and grow, and then eventually your values don't align. And I think I was brought up in a very traditional home, so I kind of struggled with, divorce isn't really right and all these things. And I kind of just reached a stage where I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm doing a disservice not only to myself, but to him as well. Just had to make that very hard call. I'd love to know, Lezly, what would your advice be to someone who is potentially in a business relationship, I want to say, or a personal relationship, and they are finding that it's, things are only meeting their needs 60% of the way? What would your advice to them be?
Learn how to communicate. Actually learn how to communicate what your needs are in a way that's not projecting them. So projection is where I would say, you're making me. No one can make you do shit just quietly. No one can make you feel shit. So if you're saying you're making me feel, it's not true. The way I'm responding to how you're behaving is making me feel. What I'm making your actions mean is what I am feeling because of this relationship is, not you're making me. Anytime you say you're causing this, you're actually giving your power away firstly.
Yeah.
And most people aren't taught this. We're not taught to take like a radical responsibility for our emotions, our existence, our relationships. Most people have shit business and personal relationships because they're afraid of having difficult conversations. And I want to say they don't actually know how to have difficult conversations in a like productive way, because most people want to give their pain to someone else. They don't want to sit with what they're feeling.
Yeah.
So if you're in a situation where you feel like you don't have the skills to communicate, firstly, gift yourself that, learn to communicate, but get someone else to help you have those conversations. And I don't actually think marriage counselling is what the answer is. I actually think it's more holistic approaches.
I agree with you.
In actually just learning how to love again, learning how to be honest, learning how to ask for what you need in a way that's not painful. It's what I've learned for the past 4 years, and it's why I feel I have the business I have and the relationship I have, because I focused on understanding myself firstly and what my needs are and how to communicate those in a way that's not making my needs someone else's problem. Learning to receive, like letting people support me.
Yes, I think a lot of us struggle with that, yeah.
And then trusting, and I want to say one step further in the trusting, especially in business with team members, it's like trusting that even if they fuck up, I can fix it. Because if you don't let them try, you're actually breeding codependency inside of your business relationships. And if you're breeding codependency inside of your business relationships, that is when you start to build a well-curated prison rather than a business that sets you free. Because if you need to sign off on everything your team does, you actually haven't created freedom. You've just created more processes and different levels of hierarchy to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really glad that you shared that as well, because I think some people, think that they've got stuff set up, but everything still has to go through them. And you literally have to just let it go and let that person on your team learn that hard lesson or whatever the case may be. And my mentor said to me the one day, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? So they fuck up, okay, they've done it. You just have to implement the steps thereof to either try fix it or your ops manager fixes it. And I was like, oh, right, that's actually true. And I just felt like a bit of pressure was alleviated in that moment, because you realize you can just take the steps to fix it, right? Hopefully no one's died, but yeah.
And in personal relationships, curiosity over blame. We often don't have enough curiosity. We feel the pain in what they're doing or what they've done, rather than coming to these conversations or disagreements with curiosity, like, I wonder why they did this, or I wonder why I did. Curiosity with yourself and with them. I wonder why they behaved like this. Two people have to come to the party, even more so in personal relationships. But I say to women often, and especially when we start to get into the realm of, well, men are meant to lead, or I'm so sick of being the one to fix everything, blah, 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 which was me, by the way. I'm not pointing fingers.
Me as well.
Yeah. I was that woman. I was like, what, you haven't fixed it yet? I've given you like a month. Fuck.
I was the same.
10 years of telling you can't do it, and now I've told you can, you should.
Yeah.
I say that tongue in cheek, but it's true. And I think for me, the biggest thing is I didn't have enough curiosity. I just wanted to basically give him the pain I'd suppressed for 10 years. And he didn't even understand he was causing the pain, because it was a dual we were in co-creation of that dynamic. So yeah, curiosity, and a lot of compassion for self and other. and really just taking radical self-responsibility, radical ownership of your emotions, radical ownership of your co-creation of the environment that you find yourself in.
Lezly, thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us. And I just think there's so much, I have the utmost respect the way you acknowledge your role that you've played, in your previous marriage, in your business. And I think that radical responsibility is a huge one, because it takes a lot of, I'm going to say, balls to actually admit the stuff, and you just do it with such a sense of peace as well. So that's why I can really tell you've done that inner healing. I'd love to ask more about your psychedelic journey and how you coach people, because I'm a firm believer there's a lot of healing in that.
Yes.
Do you mind to touch on that and how do you potentially work with people in that space, or what you've seen in your own experience?
Yeah. I mean, I would never break any laws.
Of course, yes.
Psychedelics for me, so I've had 2 ayahuasca ceremonies and a whole bunch of mushroom ceremonies. I kind of want to share with a caution that it's not a magic pill.
Of course.
You don't just take it and it fixes your life. In fact, it highlights all the places that you're out of alignment, and it highlights all the places you've been hiding. So it can be challenging to integrate. And actually the reason that I went and studied, so I'm a certified psychedelic coach. In Australia, I'm not a psychologist or a psychotherapist, so I can't prescribe it and I can't legally hold ceremonies.
Got it.
But I understand what's happening on a neurological level. So even with the holistic view that I have on the world, I'm such a nerd for why. I think it's a part of my trauma. I need to understand things so I can fix things. But I did a whole bunch of psychedelic experiences. It blew my world wide open in the best ways, but it was challenging in times because no one really helped me integrate. No one helped me understand. No one told me that my life was going to turn on its head for 12 months. And I didn't have anyone hold me through that process.
Yeah.
So I've gone and taken mushrooms. I've then left my husband. I've then sold my business. I've then gone on this soul searching journey. And do you know what's really interesting? I'm right back where I started.
Wow.
And I laughed the other day. I was like, wow, this is a hilarious cosmic joke, because I burnt everything to the ground, and what I discovered was that if I had have had more grace and patience with myself, I wouldn't have had to burn it to the ground. There was an easier way through, which is why psychedelics comes with a warning, because yes, you can have a beautiful etheric experience, and my invitation would be to start with mushrooms before you go straight to ayahuasca.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, you can have this journey, and do you know what? Mushrooms can be fun. And it will starts to shake up the mud that's sitting underneath your subconscious. And whether you're consciously aware of what's happening or not, you can have really dark mushroom experiences. You can have really etheric mushroom experiences. Most of the time when it's guided and it's guided well, it'll have an element of darkness, but they bring you back into the lightness.
Right.
But what's actually happening on a neurological level, which most people don't tend to understand, is that it's opening new neural pathways in the brain. So psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in psychedelic mushrooms, actually opens neural pathways. So if you have a core belief or a limiting belief, you can start to change that based on the neural pathways that open. You also have a better chance of reprogramming yourself. And I know I say this a lot, but guys, look into how programmable we are. But you have a better chance of forming new beliefs, patterns and behaviors after a high dose experience or microdosing of psilocybin, because your brain becomes more malleable. So we're actually quite fixed in who we are and what we do. And it's only through, psychologists, I love you, and I don't actually believe in psychology. I believe everything needs a holistic approach, and I talk about body, mind, soul. You can do all of the mental work in the world, but if you're not running it through your emotional body or through your somatic body, there's no actual lasting change. There's so many examples of this. Even in my relationship that I'm in, consciously I know that I'm safe. Somatically, we've already touched up on some pieces where I haven't felt safe.
Sure. And
my conscious mind has been like, what is wrong with you? You are so safe. And my somatic body is in a trauma response from my childhood.
Got it.
So to heal that, you actually need to be in your somatic body. So my partner is well versed in these realms, and it is a beautiful experience for me. But if I didn't understand that, most people would end the relationship there because they don't understand what's happening.
Sure.
Whereas I've done enough work to explain to him, hey, this is what's happening internally for me, and I need you to support me in this way. And because I have that awareness and that communication, it's the best relationship I've been in.
Yeah.
Most people hit up against that subconscious trauma and bail out because they think that it's, I don't know, a sign, or they get anxiety and like, well, I feel anxious around this person. It could just be that they're making you feel safe for the first time and you're not used to that.
Sure.
So similar happens with any sort of trauma healing or taking psychedelics. Psychedelics also helps us get into blocked trauma or blocked memories. So mushrooms is a little more easier to integrate and understand depending on how the volume or the grammage of mushrooms you have. Ayahuasca, though, make sure you have a plan for how you're going to integrate. Because what bothers me or is problemsome to me is people just fly to Peru for a week, sit ayahuasca for a weekend and go straight back to their job on Monday. You can't.
No, it's quite profound, I've heard as well.
It's quite profound.
Can people pass away from it as well, I think? Or is that what they say of a shaman?
No, there's actually no, you can't overdose.
Right, okay.
You cannot overdose. You can have psychotic breaks. It's intense on your psyche. It's intense on your soma. It's an intense experience. People lose their mind, truthfully, mainly because they don't know how to integrate. And that might be 1 in 100 people. And I actually don't think they lose their mind. I just think they don't have the resources or the tools or the skills to integrate their experience properly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they're probably in a lot of denial about who they are and what needs to change in their life. And again, I researched this and so many people that hold ayahuasca ceremonies. And I saw a really good post on this on Nico Cannon's page the other day, actually. So if anyone's interested, go look at this post where he expresses that someone that had an ayahuasca experience, because he lives in Peru and he takes people through it constantly, in that what the issue with integration is, if the medicine shows you what you need to change and you don't change it, it's kind of relentless in reminding you what needs to change. So people that haven't had anxiety will then have anxiety.
Got it.
But because let's say the medicine's told them they're in a toxic relationship and then they don't leave that relationship, or they're in a job that doesn't fulfill them and they're like a prisoner to their job because they get paid well and then they don't leave it. So there's a lot of, I understand this, the neuroscience, but there's a lot of like spiritual and even psycho-spiritual things that happen after that people don't take into consideration. I'd probably do it again. I don't feel the call to, but I would do it all over again. I feel the peace that I've found is because I've gone through the challenges of integrating those experiences. You know, I say I was a high achiever in my businesses. I was also a high achiever in my healing. I kind of took 2 years and went in solid, and I was like, well, if we're going in, we're going in.
I did the same.
Dude, I'm not doing this by halves.
No.
Show me my trauma, please. So yeah, I would do it again. And I would have a lot more grace. Again, I didn't think I was going to scale multi 7-8 figure businesses again. I thought part of me for a little while thought I wanted to just like be barefoot and lay on the beach.
Yeah. And
I probably needed that for a period of time. But what I discovered was it wasn't fulfilling, because like I'm kind of made to help people build. Like it would actually be a disservice to the women that I serve to not integrate the balance that I found in scaling big businesses.
Yes.
And when you've sort of landed in your purpose on this planet, ignoring it's also painful.
Yeah, very, very powerful.
So yeah, it's kind of, yes, I have, I don't know, enough awareness that that's possible, and I'm in devotion to helping people evolve. It's kind of, I do believe we have callings and life purpose. And if I can help just one woman stop accepting half love and living a half life and in this constant state of hustle and burnout and, I don't know, just disconnected from what's true, then great, job done.
Yeah. And this might be a generational thing, but I've seen like with my mom's generation, they kind of just accepted things as they were. And then what I noticed, and again, this is just an outside observation, is you have this group of women that have, you know, they've stayed in marriages for 45 years. They've, you know, put their kids, their family, everything first. And once their kids move out and have lives of their own, there's almost like the person that's there is somewhat lost because they've put everyone else before them. And I get it, like, you know, being a mom and all that. But it's something I've noticed that they seem to be a bit like unsettled because now they're at this point of their life and they're like, well, you know, I'm 65 now, I'm too far gone, so why bother? But yeah, I love what you framed there, and that you really want to help women step into their power and not be that, you know, when they are in that age. So it's very powerful what you're doing.
There's a few things at play here. We choose wrong because we'd rather be loved by someone than no one.
True.
And I think that's actually what's wrong with most marriages, is that we didn't have the difficult conversations because no one taught us how to have boundaries or self-respect or self-love.
Yeah.
So I actually think that's what's wrong with 90% of marriages, to be honest. On the flip side of that, we're in a society where giving up's easy.
Yeah.
I trust the path I walked was a path I walked, and that now that I know that our values are so misaligned, I trust that me and my ex-husband were meant to be together, and I wish I had the skills I had now so I could have not made that choice back then.
Sure.
But I did probably bail out too soon because I was just so fed up. And again, it takes two people to want to do the work to make it work.
It does, yeah, definitely.
It's almost like I sit with this often because I help people with relationships and I help people with business, and I don't want to be the woman or the coach or the mentor that's like, well, just give up, because I don't think that's true. And if you made the wrong decision and you're with the wrong person, no amount of work is going to change that.
No.
And this is why this work becomes really like tender and difficult almost, because I'm an advocate for love. I'm an advocate for men changing. My ex-husband's changed. We're just not values aligned.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, there's so many, I guess, like systemic fundamental things that are wrong. One of my favorite clients is actually in her 60s, and she's similar. Kids have grown up. Relationship is not where they want it to be, and she's about to step into becoming a coach. And I see it in a lot of women. But she wouldn't have gotten to that place if she didn't self-abandon when she was 20, and then didn't self-abandon again when she had kids, and then didn't self-abandon again when she chose to move for her husband, and so many things that come into play before that step.
Yeah, true.
It's almost like we need to educate the 17 and 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds of like, go and live your life. There's such a fear of loneliness.
There is.
And there's such a, and again, this was me, I can see it in my sisters, I can see it in it's like, this love is better than no love. And it's just not true. Similar with this job is better than no job.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
And then self-responsibility, because if you believe that, then there's something inside of you fundamentally where you probably are aware that you're not actually a good lover or partner because you're not willing to face your own shit.
Yeah.
And you're not actually a good employee because you're not willing to face all the areas that you're entitled or lazy or disempowered, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's systemic, but I see it often. Yeah, women that just start to reclaim their lives when they're 60. My invitation would be like, you have so much of your life left. Just start the business, do the things, have the conversations. At that age. And then if you're in your 30s or 40s listening to this and you're like, I hate my business, I hate my marriage, I hate my life, stop like settling for what you've got and start demanding more from yourself. It's not actually anyone else. You need to start demanding more from yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah. Lezly, I've so enjoyed the conversation. I've gone completely off my notes. There was one thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap up. Now, I've completely lost my place because I've so enjoyed our conversation. What is the biggest misconception people have about stepping into true CEO leadership?
Oh, yeah, that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not. You just have to choose it.
Yeah.
Actually, that having the business means you're a CEO, it's not. I want to relate it back to, like most women, the CEO Circle is my program, come to me because they've got businesses but they don't act like a CEO. What I mean by that is they don't know how to delegate. They're constantly micromanaging. Most people build prisons, not businesses.
Yeah.
Like golden handcuffs, like just because your name's on the door doesn't mean you have freedom.
No.
And the biggest misconception is, well, I'm a business owner now, I'm a CEO now, I have to have this responsibility. I have to be the first in the door and the last to leave. I have to set an example. You actually set an example by setting boundaries, and you set an example by saying, like, I have never actually been an employee that clocked in and out on time. I just want my outcomes to be achieved.
Yeah.
When you start managing by outcomes, and it's, you know, you do want to set a standard. You do, if you're paying someone hourly, you want them to work for their hours. But I've never really been one, and I've been better at this in the way I communicate it more so, in that if you want to knock off at 3 to take your kid to school, and again, if that's a value of yours and I don't give you that, you won't stay.
Yeah.
So everything, those relationships feed into everything. And again, then to touch on, everyone thinks it's strategy. It's not. It's self-relationship. Everyone thinks becoming a CEO is, I don't know, learning Six Sigma or learning how to set SMART goals or something. It's not. It's actually learning how to lead yourself so you can lead your business effectively.
So true. And that's been one of my biggest lessons as well, working with my mentor, is that, you know, I was so focused on the business stuff and I want to do this and this and this. And then he's taking me on this full journey of like self-discovery, you know, how is Tracy wired? What makes her kind of thrive? And also, what am I capable of? And breaking all those stupid stories that I tell myself. And it's just completely changed my whole life. So
I love it.
Powerful.
So powerful.
Lezly, have you got some advice for a business owner? Because I'm a big advocate for mentoring, business advisory. I firmly believe like it changes your business and your life. So I'm always for it. If someone is looking at trying to find a business coach or mentor, what would be some guidance you could give them? Because I think there's a lot of misconception there as well, that it's an absolute waste of time and money and I can do everything on my own. What would your advice be there?
You actually, it's impossible for you to see yourself and your blind spots. It's impossible. Even on ayahuasca, guys. It's impossible. It's impossible for you to actually know what your blind spots are. 2 brains are always better than 1. And especially if you're stuck working in your business more than you would like, you actually can't see the bigger landscape of your business.
Yeah.
So I say that, like, one of my superpowers is I can actually almost see like the ecosystem of a business and its capacity to grow. I can, like, when people speak to me, I actually can visualize, okay, here's where they are now, but here's where it can grow into, and this is what's possible.
Yeah, great.
If you're stuck here in it, and you are, if you're constantly like fielding calls and hiring team members and coming up with the strategy, you actually don't have the foresight to see the blind spots.
No.
And we're not meant to do it alone.
No.
Again, most of what I find in leaders is a lot of their subconscious blocks is they already feel isolated. They already feel like their relationship is failing. They already feel like they don't have friends. They already feel like tall poppy syndrome means that everyone hates them. So there's a subconscious block to more growth because they're not happy with their current level of success, and they're feeling unfulfilled here. So how is more going to help them? Or they've gotten to the more and they were like me and they're like, but this isn't fun. And I don't like my life, and this fulfillment piece I was looking for is not here.
Yeah.
So it tends to be 2 sides to that scale. So you can't see yourself. I know you're smart. I know we all are. We're all really smart. We all understand strategy. We're all driven. It's not about, I think people think mentors or coaches or business advisors is like going to keep you accountable. And because most entrepreneurs that need the most help are high achievers, they're like, well, I don't need someone to keep me accountable. So many. Because I'm a high achiever.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what happens when you can't see the burnout that's coming? What happens when you're 40 and not in a fulfilling relationship?
Yeah.
What happens when your business collapses overnight because there's, 3 different areas of your business you're ignoring because you're really good at this, but you ignore that because you're not good at it, and you think if you just focus on this and keep driving sales, it'll all work itself out, but your cash flow dies and your business collapses because of your bad debt. We can't see ourselves. We can't see the full ecosystem of our business.
No.
We have to have someone to help us with that. Yeah, and especially if you want fulfillment in it. Sure, go and get all the strategy in the world, but you will cry to someone like me when you're 50 and a millionaire but hate your life.
Yes.
Do the work now. Build, in the build that I'm in, I've had conversations where I've literally said to my partner, if I can't have the life that I want while I'm building this, I know subconsciously I won't do it, or I'll do it and I'll self-sabotage. So I refuse to walk that path again. It might feel a little more challenging in the beginning, but I know what's possible, and I know that it's only impossible if I believe that to be true.
And Lezly, what would your advice be to someone, because you spoke about those inner voices that we all have, perhaps they know they've got work to do, they're avoiding it by, drinking, partying, staying in, a relationship that doesn't serve them, they work late at night. What would the first step be for that person to really start that personal growth journey? Because sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is just make that one step forward into actually embracing who we are fully.
It's almost like choose your hard. Because you will get to a point where it all burns, and we think that it's not going to be us. And I mean, burn by your business might stay, but you're on your fourth marriage, or your kids end up hating you, or you have a drinking problem, or you're overweight and you're unhealthy. I've been that person, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I've literally had 5 houses, $1 million everything, designer everything, and it's just not worth it. And you don't have to sacrifice. And I think, there's no magic pill. And I think this is what people are avoiding. It's like, well, I don't have the time. I'm already so busy because I am building a business, or I'm already so busy because I don't know how to delegate. Yeah, and if you keep going like that, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's like nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah, so true.
And trying to do it on your own when you're so entwined in that belief system is near on impossible. And it took me breaking in order to do it. What I'm trying to do is be like, guys, don't break. Just come to me before it becomes like I'm going to blow up my whole life. And let's slowly start to peel away the control mechanisms, the self-protection mechanisms, the subconscious patterns that you're following that got you into this situation in the first place.
And Lezly, if there was one bit of advice you could give your, I think you said you were 15 when you moved out of your grandparents' house. If there was one piece of advice you could give 15-year-old Lezly, what would it be?
Love yourself first. Yeah, all day long. Learn to love yourself first. I was so busy seeking that outside of myself that's where, even in my business mistakes, that's actually what I was doing, was trying to get someone to love me for my achievements. And if I had that internal unshakable self-love, I just want to say here, self-love isn't like I need to be perfect to be loved.
Yeah.
I love myself unconditionally. So even when I fuck up, I actually love myself more, because I love my humanity.
Yes.
I love the way in which I evolve through the mistakes that I make. So it's not finding a place of perfectionism, it's finding a place of radical self-responsibility balanced with self-acceptance. Otherwise you can spiral into shame.
And Lezly, what does that look like, loving yourself? Is it being more gracious? Is it kind of, on a run I'll sometimes pump myself up and be like, you can do it.
Yes, yes.
What does it look like? Because I find so many people say that, and this is more for our listeners. In your words, like, what does it look like to love yourself more and to really create that space to actually be able to love yourself more as well?
Grace is the word that I would use to describe it. I'm not seeking perfectionism or to be perfect in any way. And it's knowing that love isn't just soft and kind and caring. Like, love is firm and fierce, and love is looking yourself in the mirror and saying you're actually not doing good enough, but not shaming yourself for not doing good enough.
Right.
It's just holding yourself to a higher standard. Because, when I was losing weight, what I would say, if I loved myself, would I punish my body by eating sugar? If I loved myself, would I get up and move, or would I lay in bed?
Yeah.
If I loved myself, would I allow myself to stay in a mediocre relationship and a mediocre job or a mediocre business? I wouldn't.
No.
Love's not self-sacrificial or weak even. Like, love is like fierce and strong, and it's like the love of a mother. Good mothering is not just pandering to a child. It's actually like, no, I'm going to hold you to a higher standard here, and I'm going to love you into that higher standard. I'm not going to punish you into that higher standard.
Yeah.
It's not all bubble baths and
roses and Cupid bows.
Yeah, and date nights. It's like, I love you, and it's the standard that we're setting for ourselves right now is not good enough. And I want to see better for you. And I know we can do better because like we're on the same team. And when we're on the same team internally, it doesn't feel as impossible to become the version of you that can hold the life that you're seeking.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Lezly, where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
I do have a website, but I don't love websites. But Instagram, I'm the most active on Instagram. And by me, I mean my team's the most active on Instagram. If you're still managing your social media, DM me immediately.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
DM
totally.
me immediately.
Do it.
So Instagram, and just to say I won't palm you off to my team to start conversations. If you want to start a conversation, I am in my DMs responding to conversations. But look at the show notes because my name is spelled Lezly and then Kaye. So that's probably the most difficult thing in finding me is learning or knowing how to spell my name properly. So look at the show notes for that.
We'll pop everything in the show notes. Lezly, thank you so much for your time today. I just want to actually take a moment and celebrate you. You know, sometimes we're born into an upbringing that doesn't really serve us initially. I find myself getting emotional saying this to you, but I think it's fabulous and wonderful. I have utmost respect for you. How you've literally just flipped that on its head, you know, done the hard work, which is so brave because not everyone is brave enough to do it. And yeah, it's just really great to see you stepped into your power and how you opening up the space for other people to do the same. So thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. I tried to resist it and life had other plans. So thank you for the space to speak into it. I appreciate it.
I loved it. Thank you so much.